Hey, good afternoon, friends. This is Michaela at HeartScapes Studio and Homestead. And I'm just jumping on here with a quick follow-up video to give you an update on the hugelculture raised beds that I shared with you earlier this week. And to tell you a little bit about what building these beds is teaching me about how to let go of things that we love with grace. So I'll just pan this over here. Earlier this week, I filled these deep raised beds with logs, cut logs at the very bottom of this bed, and then added in some smaller sticks and branches, then followed by some dried leaves to build a really heavy kind of carbon layer at the bottom of this bed that will slowly decay and both hold moisture and continue to release carbon into the soil above it slowly. And then I went through my garden and I pruned back a bunch of nasturtium and borage and lavender that were beginning to go to seed and get done with their lifespan or just had overgrown. And so that's the bed here of greens that you see. It's kind of beautiful cacophony of flowers and vines here at the midpoint. And then on top of that, I'll add a bunch of compost from my composter, and at the very top, some fully composted compost from a nearby farm. And so as you see, we have layers moving from kind of the freshest dead, the cut branches, the leaves, the recently cut flowers, up to layers and layers that are more and more and more decayed and closer to the form of soil until finally we have soil at the top. And what that's really been bringing to mind as I've been working on this bed in kind of a meditative way over the past few days is the way in which, at a fundamental level, a garden or the forest floor or anywhere where these processes are at place is really at its fundamental level is a place where death is transformed back into life. And it's a place where we can witness really directly, biologically embodied ways, the way in which we really have to let go of what has died and let it go into a process of deconstruction before new life can be welcomed into that same space. And so that concept is really embedded into this bed in a couple of ways that I wanted to share with you. My hair is doing some crazy things here in this wind. Firstly, just like at the layer of the surface here, these flowers, which I just love. I've had such an amazing time getting to know borage and getting to be reacquainted with nasturtium and my lavender. It's always a little bit sad to cut these plants back. But there was so much space made in my herb garden in the back. So I'll make another video showing you what we'll put in back there. But in the wood layer underneath here, which I didn't show you in the last video, there's the base of a large wood burl table. And this table was my mother's, and it was in my home growing up my whole life. She had it longer than I've been alive, as far as I know. And then it came here to my house and was my coffee table for a while. And then eventually it got moved outside. And it's been sitting out here on my patio for the last, 7 years. Slowly, the beautiful shiny coat has been worn away. It's slowly beginning to decay, become the home for many insects. And when I went to move it to make room for these beds, the top of it just completely pulled off. It had just been completely rotted off. And so I knew that it was time to really rethink whether I could keep this table, whether it made sense. And at the same time, I'm thinking, where am I going to find big pieces of wood to fill these beds? And, my mind clicked, put those two things together, and I knew that these beds would actually be kind of like a burial place for this table that's been in my life for so long, which had a lot of sadness to it and a lot of, like a sense of gripping and like a sense of, I don't want to let go of that thing that's been with me for so long. And I don't want to, upset my mother by getting rid of this thing that she's had for so long. And Mom, if you're watching this, please forgive me. But hopefully you understand. And But it was obviously the right thing to do. So that table is laid here. It filled more than a quarter of this bed. And then what that did was open up another possibility for just another opportunity for this bed to be a place where death is transformed into life. So some of you know we keep rabbits. We have rabbits in the back. And when I very first got the rabbits over a year ago, I didn't build their coop I built it well enough for the average predator, but I didn't realize that coyotes were going to come through my backyard in the fall. And they did, and one of our rabbits, Molly, was killed. And so then I had these remains of this rabbit, and the clay soil in my backyard is so deep or so thick, I knew I wasn't going to be able to dig a deep enough hole to really bury her properly and make sure that predators can't dig her up. And I couldn't stand the thought of just tossing her in the green waste bin or, any other alternative just was not the right thing. And so she's been in my freezer for almost a year. And when I laid this table down, I noticed that it had this kind of beautiful concave space in the side that I hadn't noticed when it was in its table shape. And as I'm building this bed here, you can see that I've just kind of made this little cradle here. And when my daughter gets home from her dad's, we're gonna have a little burial ceremony for Molly and lay her in this little cradle and then finish filling it in with compost. And she'll get to be here as her grave site, and her body will be incredibly nourishing to the plants that I plant here. In fact, the bodies of animals buried in your garden is a really wonderful way to amend your soil. It's recommended. So I just wanted to share that with you. First of all, because I'm finding it really beautiful looking at the flowers kind of all tangled together here. There's this amazing scent of the nasturtium and the lavender and the borage coming from this bed. It's such a beautiful coming together of death and life in a way that's going to be immediately observable and immediately engaged by me and my family. So I just wanted to share that with you, and I will give you another update when we get the compost in and start thinking about planting. And in the meantime, I'd love to hear from you if you have had experiences or have made observations similar to this, where you've been engaged in a natural process in some way that just kind of helped you to process something that you were dealing with, helped you to see the ways in which the cycles of nature and the cycles of the seasons really actually can support the cycles of our life and understanding the ways in which things change and transform in our lives. So yeah, share any of that with me that you like, and I'll be back again in a few days with another update. See you later. Bye-bye.